it's not like, you know, faded or anything. So usually I have shades of that, and I think I could pull out the whole week doing shades of green.
Yeah, I love green, reason being that it has a depiction of nature.
Yeah.
When you talk about green, every time you see green, for us who are partly farmers, when there's green, there's you know, it is disaster. So
How about when it turns red?
red, no, really, maybe ripening the tomatoes and all that.
So red is good.
So Robert, what's your best color, if I may ask? Do you have any particular color you're in love with?
Purple. I would say I love purple. If you're to give me yes, if you're to give me anything purple.
Really
Though,
see a man
much as I love
color.
purple, it's not so much for my skin complexion, but I just love color purple.
Well, for me, I'm in love with blue and brown and black. Those are colors I love because they stand out. But nevertheless, maybe out there you can also share with us what's your best color and probably why. And my reasoning is blue was because my dad, that's his best color. But brown, I noticed all the time that I'm in love with brown.
You're smarter in brown, by the way. So I guess maybe
She didn't just say that.
No, you are. I've noticed whenever you put on brown, you're
yes.
always perfect, like on point.
What?
Yeah, so you should have a lot of that in your wardrobe.
Mollen is my friend, just so you know. But anyway, something quite interesting that did happen, Robert. We did hear the police coming out to make mention of a couple of things, and among the many things that Ndugu Fred Nanga came out to emphasize on was when we taking back our children to school. We about to get back into this mayhem of borders dropping kids, picking them. You see 6 children on a border. You know, you see some of these cars that carry kids. I don't know, they are called what?
School vans?
School vans.
No, shuttles.
Yeah.
Shuttles packed like potatoes and all these things. I don't know, I just thought I would get your comment about 2 things. 1, how kids are transported to school, and 2, the time they leave home and the time they get back home. Maybe you can share your experience. How was it for you? What time did you, like, nowadays I see shuttles picking kids as early as 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to 4?
And you know,
That's the best time of sleep for a child.
Pre-primary.
Absolutely. You're talking about nursery and primary kids. So probably I just want to get your comment, and I'll start with Mollen right here.
It's quite too early, if you ask me, to pick up kids at that time. But also it depends on where, you know, they're picking these kids. Because now this is one shuttle that is supposed to be picking up all these kids from different locations. So that means that the kids that are quite far from the school get the disadvantage, because now they have to drive and pick them fast. So they use that whole 1 hour and a half to pick the rest of the kids. So you find most of them are just in there dozing, and you know, they are moving them around and they are packed. Sometimes you just look at them and you feel like, oh my God, maybe we didn't have to go through this, but I'm telling you. But you know, again, another positive thing is that these kids have gotten they have adopted to this. Even when in holidays, I see kids at home, they'll wake you guys up early. So they have gotten used to the timeline that even in holidays, even during this COVID-19, now I think they're going to have a problem because they had a little bit gone down. Now they have to adjust to go back to that early waking.
Robert, you're a father. Would you wake up your child at 4 a.m. to take them to school?
I can't. You know, one of the things we must understand that for every stage in life, there's what the body, the brain can adopt. I mean, can be able to take in. That's the right word. Yeah. Can take in. So what happens? Every time you give an extra baggage to the body, there are repercussions. That's why you see that kids of today, Felix usually calls them the 90s something generation. Because you get it. This child is supposed to be sleeping and waking up maybe earliest 6.
Actually, Robert, that makes a lot of sense when you say.
So
But that
and
means
it
you
comes
must
back-
have the means to take them to school.
No,
Because guess
also,
what?
let
These
me-
shuttles
no,
pick.
No. You
Because
see,
if you're not waking them
parents of
up, then they
today-
will miss the
Let me
shuttles.
tell
That means
you,
you have to
parents
personally
of
take
today,
these kids to school. Do
yesterday-
you have the time to
Let
do
me give
that?
you a brief. Yesterday I was looking for a school for my son, pre-primary, but I found that parents of today, tuina obujanja. Let me use that. You know, there is a way if my so and so's child work together,
Mollen can put that in English
you
for
know,
us.
goes to this school. So my child, I want to tell you, in your vicinity,
Yeah.
you look around, find what is suitable for your kid. Some of you will, I must take my child to this school, that school, because you know there are the schools and you feel, yet within your community there could be one or two good schools where this child can wake up a bit on time and get to school on time.
But I want you guys to
Because
also accept
we're
the
not,
fact
we're no
that
longer in
parents
the other
are
Uganda
lazy.
where we had few schools. Felix.
Parents are lazy. They would rather be in bed and have these kids picked up instead of them actually taking the kids to school
And you know what
at the right
happens?
time.
They're in
So
bed.
someone prefers to just sleep
Yes.
and call on the shuttle to pick the kid, and they're still
Leave
going to
alone
be
that
there.
the maid
So
wakes
imagine
up,
you have to get up
prepares
early.
your child,
Yeah.
and for you you're sleeping, then that. So
Well,
I think
So as our dear parents, as we do head into trying to open schools and trying to get back into the normalities of studying and academics, please give time to your kids. I don't think it makes sense for you guys to wake up children at 4 a.m. It's not fair.
it's just not.
Yeah, it's really not
Absolutely.
fair. It's a pain. Now, by the time they start learning at 8, they are very tired.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. And that, again, is going to affect their studying, even from, progressively. A tired mind can't learn. A tired mind can never acquire information like it should. So some of the things we look out for as we try to prepare for reopening: one, make sure that you have a good timetable on how you'll be able to drop your child and pick them up. But Robert makes a very, very, very valid point. Let us look at schools not far from our communities. For some of the busy parents, you don't have to take a child 3 districts away from where you stay, and yet you're a busy parent. Now, there are many schools around our communities, a place where the child can even probably take themselves or bring themselves back, or if you're to pick them, it won't be hard, or a house help or someone. So I think we should keep that in mind. But of course, apart from that, we want to take you through what's been happening, the stories that have been making headlines since yesterday. And later on, of course, we will be going into our newsreel. Mollen will come in with weather and what's on the road. And Robert later on will be giving us our newsreel. Now, of course, the climax of the same will be sports updates. And later on, we expect to have my brother Jagenda Semakula Zikusoka crowning it all with Good Morning Uganda Extra. But for now, let's take a look at what's in the stories that were making headlines.
And we'll begin with the reopening of schools, where the Minister of State for Sport, Dennis Handsome Obua, has urged all school administrators and head teachers for both private and government schools to internalize the guidelines and be able to issue school fees instructions that fall within the confines of the guidelines issued by the Ministry for Education and Sports. It follows concerns from parents and the public on some school increasing school fees towards reopening of schools. Jane Mugisha, the head teacher of Chitanti Primary School in Kampala, said it is not in line with the Ministry of Education and Sports guidelines for them to increase school fees.
While still looking at reopening calendar, the Ministry of Education and Sports has released a calendar to guide the reopening of schools in districts of Mukono, Wakiso, Kampala, and PG starting 10th to 13th of January. And the spokesperson, Ministry of Education and Sports, Dr. Mujimba Dennis, says this will reduce congestion that would lead to massive spread of COVID-19. The Ministry of Education and Sports has released the program to guide school reopening for various classes in a staggered manner in districts of Kampala, Mukono, Wakiso and Mpigi. Now on 10th of January, schools in Mpigi and Wakiso will open, and classes expected this date are A-level and lower primary, while on Wednesday 12th January, all level students and pupils from P5 to P7 in these districts will resume school. Now, this was resolved at consultation from Ministry of Works and Transport, Uganda Police Force, President's Office and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Now, the calendar targets only 4 districts where 60% of the schools are in the country. Now, most Ministry of Education and Sports emphasizes that there is no guideline to the effect that students or pupils must be tested for COVID-19 before entering school.
Still on our local scene, the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has stated that the public should not expect the current fuel prices to drop due to the reopening up of the economy. It maintains that the current pump price of fuel in the country are being determined by the scarcity of crude oil in the manufacturing countries. Fuel prices in Uganda continue to remain on a high record high since October 2021 due to a global scarcity in crude oil. Fuel prices at different fuel companies like Shell, Total, Furex, among others, are at an average of 4,700 for petrol and 4,200 shillings, up from, that is 4,400 of petrol and 3,700 shillings in October for diesel. Later, the price increased due to scarcity in crude oil. By the end of December, government plans to reopen the economy, relaxing and urging passengers to understand the situation, those that are using public means of transport. Taxis and buses also have reduced travel fares to balance up the high cost incurred on fuel. Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development shows that Uganda is expected to enjoy highly subsidized fuel prices when crude oil refining begins in 2025 from oil and gas in the Albertine Graben.
While still talking about schools, parents and school owners are advised to remain vigilant as schools prepare to reopen on 10th January. Now, enforcement of standard operating procedures is encouraged to fight the spread of COVID-19. In rather unfortunate news, a report shows that a 42-year-old HIV-positive woman has been arrested for deliberately defiling a 16-year-old juvenile in Nyonyintono. Now, Uganda police is holding a 42-year-old female teacher at Nyonyintono Chigowe Primary School for luring a 16-year-old male juvenile into unprotected sex. Now, police have arrested the woman who is HIV positive, and the juvenile has been administered to post-exposure prophylaxis medication. Now, Uganda police is also encouraging parents and school administrators to remain vigilant as schools reopen on 10th January. In other news, more 4 suspects linked to the Uganda Coalition Force for a Change have been arrested, bringing the number to 33. Now, 1 gun with 12 rounds of ammunition has been recovered after Bogele Alex, one of the suspects, led police to its hiding place. Now, CID has also revealed that Kakwenzi will be charged before the courts of law on 4th January for using his Twitter space for repeatedly abusing President Yoweri Museveni and Lieutenant General Muhoozi, commander of UPDF land forces, using derogatory words. Move over to international stories.
Of course, we will look at our first story, looking at doctors coming out to make notice, and they say that Omicron is less severe because it does not infiltrate the lungs. Now, scientists are using the world's milder, which with the perturbation of describe the illness referred to and conferred by Omicron variant. Now, SARS-CoV-2 is widely accepted that even if the variant is milder, of course, the sheer number of people it affects might lead to more hospitalization overall, with healthcare workers having to isolate due to testing positive. Now, real-world data is still coming in about whether or not the variant does indeed cause a milder illness and carries a lower risk for hospitalization, but early laboratory data on lung issues in mice and hamsters may hold some of the answers. Now, we already know that the Omicron variant harbors a mutation that makes it more transmittable. A team of researchers at Hong Kong University Faculty Medicine found Omicron replicates 70 times faster than the Delta in human airway. Now, still about international stories, Apple becomes the first company to reach 3 trillion market value. Shares of Apple rose as much as 3% on Monday to trade at least $182.88 that is US million, enough to secure the iPhone maker the coveted crown of becoming its first publicly traded company on the planet to cross the 3 trillion market capitalization mark. Now, to put into perspective, Apple values now surpasses the nominal gross domestic product that is of 6 of the world's top 10 economic, including the United Kingdom, India, France, Italy, Canada, and South Korea. Apple's rise has been relentless in recent years. Banks in August, that is 2018, it became the first United States firm to surpass 1 trillion in the market value. It blew past the 2 trillion mark only 2 years later. And in August 2020, thanks to the turbocharged pandemic appetite for tech share, it took roughly 17 months for Apple to reach the 3 trillion mark. Well, back to Africa. South Africa Parliament fire flares up again. Now, a devastating fire which swept through South Africa's parliament in Cape Town reignited just hours after it was said to be under control. Flames were seen blowing again from the building roof on Monday as firefighters tried to douse the blaze. The fire first broke out on Sunday and completely destroyed the National Assembly or lower chamber. Police have arrested a suspect who will appear in court on Tuesday in charges of arson, housebreaking, and theft. Now, authorities had warned that flares up would be possible because the carpet wouldn't flow in the building, with parliamentary spokesman Moloto telling South Africa's Time Live some firefighters would have worked throughout the night to try and prevent further blazes.
These have hit 7 states, forcing thousands to evacuate. Now, 7 states in Malaysia were hit by floods on Sunday, and thousands of people were evacuated, taking the total affected by these heavy rains in the past 2 weeks to more than 125,000. Now, the National Disaster Management Agency has said in a statement that Kelloton, Terengganu, Pahang, Johor, Malacca, Negeli, and Sabah were still affected by floods, and 8,727 people were taking shelter at 128 relief centers. Now, a total of 125,000 people have been affected by the floods nationwide. It is said that of which 117,700 people evacuated their homes. Now, floods are common on the eastern coast of Malaysia during the annual monsoon season between October and March. But unusual heavy rains that started on December 17th displaced thousands and strained emergency services. Now, 50 people have died in these floods and 2 remain missing, according to a police tweet citing Inspector General Asri Sani Abdullah. Now, after the first round of flooding 2 weeks ago, opposition lawmakers also lambasted authorities for the delay in response.
That is basically what's happening internationally, and of course we did take a look at what's happening locally. But on top of whatever is happening, else happening in Uganda is that we're trying to gear up the fight against COVID-19 as the Omicron is taking toll on most of the countries. We've seen countries like the UK, France, Belgium, Netherlands, and many other countries have gone back into lockdown, either partially or fully, or particular restrictions have been put in place to enforce the SOPs. But back home, our call is to vaccinate. We've been making sounds of the same, and we won't tire to remind you, all our viewers out there, all peace-loving Ugandans, all people who love this country to grow and of course protect each other, be able to go and get vaccinated. Encourage somebody to go and get vaccinated. The doses are right here in Uganda. At least so far we have what it takes to vaccinate quite a good percentage. But of course, on top of all those things, try to boost your immunity, try to eat well, try to do exercise, take lots of water, be able to avoid crowds, and of course wear your mask consistently. And Uncle Bob has something in addition to that.
And this is Hallelujah Jinga tea or Hallelujah turmeric drink that are very safe for you to take, but above all, Felix has just talked about boosting your immune system. We are at a time when Jinga and a few others are very, very important because they help even fight colds. Now, when we talk about Omicron being a bit mild, this is the drink that we recommend to you because issues to do with colds, flus, some of the things that Hallelujah Jinga tea will greatly boost your immune system to fight off that. So Whatever you're doing as you kickstart your morning, ensure you have this bottle at just 1,500. You're good to go, or the turmeric drink that will not only are tasty, but also benefit you health-wise. And don't forget, they have been certified by the Uganda National Bureau of Standards, making them safe for you to consume.
Well, of course, we must also remind all our viewers out there that we are all on social media platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. You can catch us again on WhatsApp in case you want to share some ideas or particular answers or contributions towards our poll question. But also, we're streaming live on YouTube. But for today, we want to share with you our poll question, where we expect you to share with us your true sense and thoughts and opinions about this particular poll question. And that poll question is, how can businesses thrive in the new normal of COVID-19? How can the businesses thrive in the new normal of COVID-19? Now, of course, you know that much has been said, and the expectation is that when the economy fully opens in terms of transport, in terms of other sectors that have been closed like bars, entertainment, theaters, cinemas, the expectation is that things may not be as easy as they have been. But the question is, how do they thrive amidst the new normal? Because between you and me, probably COVID is about to stay here for some time. So be able to hit our social medias and be able to share with us what your thoughts are, and probably some advices which we'll be able to pick on later on. But for now, we want to take a break, have our song for the day. And when we come back, myself, Mollen, and Robert will be looking at our newsreel. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.
We're still in the first week of 2022, the long-awaited year since October when His Excellency came out and said, come 2022, actually he used the word come next year, January, he would open the economy, and this is what we all anticipated. Then came the 31st, when he was very clear and said, we are going to open. Actually, all sectors were opened, and I think it's only the border that still have curfew restrictions. But the rest know as and when they'll fully have their work. Hoping that would not have the 50% bed occupancy of the intensive care units and also the high dependency units, the economy will and is expected to thrive again. Now this morning, we want to just have an insight into how the business community can make best use of these opportunities to rejuvenate the economy now that they fully know as and of when. We know by 10th, schools will be opened right from pre-primary. We expect by the 24th, that is of this very month, that we shall see the leisure industry, the bars, clubs, cinemas also reopen. The transport sector is already up there, and of course they are now having the capacity they were previously taking. However, with strict SOPs being observed or standard operating procedures. Felix, we really know that much as the economy has been opened, there are a number of challenges. And of course, we know that the business community have to ensure that they are positioning themselves not only to tap now into the business, but also there's observing the standard operating procedures. That is not going to be just opening up your shop, maybe just opening up your arcades, maybe if you have taxis loading everybody, there is this condition of SOPs. And to some extent, in business, there's maximization of profits, where some of these could be also taking a percentage of what would be their profits. At such a time, how can the business community, to begin with, balance the two and ensure that still their businesses can thrive?
Yeah, actually, Robert, you said that sometimes in businesses there's maximization of profit. Not sometimes. The only purpose for business is to maximize profits.
Sometimes you make losses. And the profits you anticipated never appear.
Well, that is a different thing. But the core purpose as to why someone will invest money is to maximize profit.
Yeah, very true.
And that being the backbone or at the back of the mind of every person who seeks to invest. And at any level, you can talk about, see, when you talk about economy, people are misled into thinking of the only big business concepts. But when you talk about the economy, we are looking at all aspects that engage directly or indirectly into economic transactions. And some of them could mean, actually, all of them fall within the categories that the Ministry of Health and of course the guidance of the President have been dealing with for the last probably 2 years. You notice that some of the areas that have been not directly, they could be indirectly engaged in economic transactions, are probably the leisure sector, as you said. Indirectly, maybe they have been transacting. If you've noticed, almost every bar in town became a restaurant. There was a bar and restaurant, which was a bar, now there is a bar and restaurant.
So you'd eat as well as drink?
Well,
or you would drink disguising that you're eating?
Well, depends. That depends on how smart these guys are done. But when you ask me the relationship between what we expect to happen and how it will directly impact on the growth or how we cause back stability into economic transactions, I would say this. One, there are three particular players you may want to concentrate on for us to have this come out as sensible. The major player in all this kind of conversation is the government. And there are very many reasons why it is the major player. Just among the many is one, that the expectation is that government is the custodian of what we call the economic policy, national economic policy. This could be under the guidance of what we call very many things, like you can talk about the national development goals, you can talk about the national objectives in terms of, you can talk about a government manifesto, you can talk about the budgetary advisory in terms of how money is allocated, all these things. That's why it is the primary a stakeholder when you talk about how good shall we make, or what good can we make out of the economy as we are reopening. It is the primary. Secondly, are the other players. The other players would mean associates, government associates in terms of building the economy, and this could also take up the wananchi, people who are in businesses either directly or indirectly. But also, the third one would be the international economic partners or partnerships we have as a country. This say a lot on what we can do because they inform the kind of economics or style we may pick up in times like this to answer the questions of the COVID. I can give you an example. When you look at agriculture, you notice that there has been a lot of surplus in the last 2 years. And the reasoning is simple, because we have not had very much or fairly good market for some of our products because of probably the reduced purchasing power of other consumers, not necessarily Ugandans, you know, and this has been evident in products like eggs, even chicken products. You saw the maize, all these things. Because of the COVID, the consumption or the purchasing power of some of the products globally went down. Where countries used to say we used to export say about 1 million goods, wouldn't be able, because even the other countries would not have the intake capacity. Yes. So we must answer or deal with these three stakeholders strategically. The people who are involved in transaction, or we want to call the economic community, if I may call it that, directly and indirectly, the government, but also look at our international economic policy. As we answer these questions, let me just say this lastly. When you come to the to the economic community, the economic transacting community, which is directly or indirectly, you must be keen to give most relevant assistance to this community. Why? Because they are like the boosters. You get it? They're the ones who boost the other two. Government revenue is only guaranteed if you have an active economic transacting community. Even the international community can only be alive when the farmer is able to probably take care of the chicken or go, you know, buy the seed, buy the pesticide and all these things. So you must be able to cause a true merger to transcend the challenges of this community, of the international expecting community, but later on, that all must be done with the kind of policies the government brings on board.
Well said, Felix. When you talk about policies, I really agree with you. For example, we are now moving towards reopening of schools. But yesterday, I was speaking, that is the head of private schools in Kampala. And he brought it to my knowledge that over 100 schools are not going to reopen for first term. One is in Buya College, a very big school having over 2,000.
And what was the reason?
Well, they're choking on loans.
They're not ready.
So they cannot open. Others, the banks have taken them. They've run to government to help here and there. There's a time when their body asked, you remember in Parliament, the Parliamentary Education Committee, and they were there and they said, at least assist us with 100 million each.
Bailout.
A bailout, so that we can pay this in a period of 5 years. So if government does not give assistance, go downtown, traders are choking on, these are licenses, so much taxation, the revenue. So you're reopening, the purchasing power is very little or low, but then you have taxes that are so much. The landlords, at one time traders thought government maybe would come up with something or a bailout on that issue.
But so government is also poor. Government is struggling, but let's leave that for it.
But of course, one of the things, you know, is where do you invest, and then there's a trickle down effect to that. If these people shrink and get out of business, then how are you going to still even have the little you're getting? Because like the education sector contributes so much to this country. Mollen, I also want us to look at the aspect now, specifically of the standard operating procedures as these businesses open up. Because you must understand, this reopening has terms and conditions. And the biggest term is the SOPs. Yesterday I witnessed a very interesting incident on Sarama Road. These guys were staying in the taxi and they were stopped. There was a roadblock. Where are your vaccination cards? So the driver, you're not supposed to be on the road, park, and the taxi told to police. The passengers, all that were inside, if you didn't have a vaccination card, get out of the van, find your own way. Those that have vaccination cards. So if this goes also to other sectors, then what is going to happen?
Well, Robert, I think the first thing that we look at right now in the current times is that if you're a business out there and you haven't planned for the effectiveness of the standard operating procedures, then you have failed as a business person. Because for the years that we've battled COVID-19, we've had to know that this is the new normal. Now, if you're operating business, and I want to state this as a rule in business, first thing you have to think about is your cash flow during this recovery time. Because the economy is opening up. That means that you have to plan for it. You have to plan for that recovery. And planning for your cash flow is one of those things that you have to include on that plan, because first of all, it's inevitable that you're going to have to observe these standard operating procedures. But also, speaking as a person in business as well, you have to be able to invest money to be able to earn money. So that means that you're going to require enough capital to even reinvest in your business. Now, there are businesses that have been, struggling, looking at the fact that they've had to cut on employees, they have had to, cut down on also the operators. Everything has been, kind of struggling. But we look at the positives that COVID-19 did bring, and that included digital marketing as well. So most of the businesses have had to adjust to go digital and have these online sales. So I think one thing that people should be prepared for is make sure that you continue with what you've had online. Make sure that that is still going. Because guess what? Most of the businesses that we have had right now, including even, the small-scale businesses, I want to talk about these small-scale businesses, the businesses that are targeting, local people. Because if you talk about big businesses, these are people who have had insurance, even in their businesses. But how about these
all the expertise, consultants and all that.
Exactly. But these ones are struggling and they're thriving. So all these, so all these whatevers you have had to adjust to, do not let them go. And I know there are people who are thinking of, okay, they did make promises when they cut off employees, saying that, you know what, when we fully reopen, we'll call back. That is a wrong move. You can't recall back your employees right now. It needs a target period, at least maybe look at a month before you can call back these employees. Because guess what? You don't have enough money. First of all, you're going to adjust to have to make sure that you're keeping up with the standard operating procedures. You have to restock. You have to have all these things in place. So you recalling back these employees will just, cut down on your profits. So I think it has to be in phases as well. Yes, we are fully
when demand is high and you require extra manpower,
that's when you bring them back. But for now, I think it's important to plan for that recovery. It's important to have your cash flow in the right planning, because guess what? It might also still struggle even when we talk about economy. But also you look at businesses that will really have to boost up, because when people are moving and everything is opening up, there's going to be also a lot of pressure. You have businesses that require a lot of operatives. So either way, you have to plan and make sure that even the employees that you have are going to have to put up with that capacity. So I think that also while you're looking at capacity building in your businesses, you have to keep in mind what works for your business, because this is different. You might not need to wait on government to, help out, because some of these banks are also going to be hard with loans. Because now even the collateral that you're using to acquire some of the loans might not be valued at that point.
And of course,
so you can't count on this.
Between you, the private sector, borrowing, and of course our budget, even government went for domestic borrowing.
Yes.
And it seems that is also increasing.
Which is why Felix is saying government is poor.
So many would prefer to lend government than lending an individual company. Because with government there is so much assurance that they are going to pay.
But how about this person down down, you know, the grassroots, who is unable to get some of, and there are even the programs that government has put up, you know, the parish model, all these, some are not even working for the targeted groups. And that is why where people are struggling. Even some of these programs that you could acquire some of the money from are not in reach. They just, you know, like they're far away from you. So all you can do right now is fend for your business, fend for yourself. And the only way to do that is just plan for your money. It's not necessary for you to just, you know, hurry and be like, okay, now everything is opening up. Let me just, you know, get this and get that. Have that plan and take a time period to recover.
So basically there's you must have priority expenditure. Don't just spend on anything. What are the priorities that are going to rejuvenate your business? Sometimes you see people, most I like these SMEs, when the CEOs reach some level, you begin seeing unnecessary expenditures. I remember one time I moved into some spare part selling shop, and every client who would come would get a bottle of soda. You know, if purchase some, I kept on asking, well, if
customer
you have
care.
Yes, customer care, but maybe some
which
of
is
these,
unnecessary at this
particular
really.
time, they must be cut. You know, you've been having these promotions here, there, and there. It's good to market your business, but I think
so now you give them
now you're looking at,
you know, the sanitizer instead of a bottle of soda.
Yeah, so you must see what is it that we must spend on in a business. If it's not really a necessity, then I think this is the time where someone must really ensure that is not part of the expenditure. But also, Felix, there is something that you mentioned, the three elements. You talked about government, which I think we've discussed. But also, I want this relationship for us to better understand when we talk about the international community into this. How best could individual businesses take advantage of this as well at such a time?
Well, I think it's just about positioning. Majorly, it's about positioning. And being able to cause true and relevant identification of answering the needs of these communities. You see, smart people or smart business people simply answer needs or answer questions by the people who seek to purchase from them, or come up with ideas that solve the problems. For example, there was a time in this country where no one was talking about rubbish collection as a business, if you remember. Today, it's a big deal, man.
Even funeral services.
Thank you.
Who would think you lose your relative?
In Uganda, we
someone
say,
is making money.
In Uganda, would say that Nyonyintono now. Because that's well thought. It's a very good example. Who would ever imagine? Now, COVID displays new challenges. The smart people create solutions. Some companies I know no longer produce alcohol content that is too much, but they produce sanitizers. I know one of my friends, some artists, the B2Cs, now they are into sanitary, equipment. I saw them last time they were launching sanitizer, they were launching, they're called what? These things that women use when they're removing their
the wipes.
Powder. Yes,
wipes, yeah.
You know, all those things. Now, it's just about realigning our businesses to maintain relevancy even in the new normal, what you call the new name, or the abnormal. You get it? Because if you've been selling, let's say, that's why in Akugambye, I told you from the start, that those that were bars then now are restaurant and bar. You get it? Some of them even have become confectionaries, bars and restaurant. You see? Now, it means that as we reopen the economy, we must concretely think of ideas that redefine relevancy of our business. Away from this norm of wechiri, you're going to lose out. As a student of corporate governance and a practitioner of the same, I have read about many companies that have failed. When you read about companies like the Nokias of this world, the reason why the Samsungs, the Apples passed them, yet the Motorola's, because they failed to transit from the normal traditional phones to quickly get into the smart world and Android and what. Now, don't be left behind. if you've been doing probably bad business, start to think about what else can you do. Now delivery is the thing. How do you incorporate your business into delivery?
Some people have learned drinking from home and they find more
all those things, yes. So
some people
if you've been let's say hiring a shop in an arcade, a big shop of about 6 million a month, how do you think better? Because one, know that people's movements are limited because of fears of COVID. Even transport means. Secondly, maybe some people are more comfortable. So I think as we talk about the reopening of the economy, the people who run this economy, who are business transactors, or directly or indirectly, must also add some value into trying to do differently the same thing. It's the way to go. The world has changed. Because let me give you an example. Lastly,
finally, yes.
I don't know if any of us would have ever imagined that some things will never be possible. How could we enter a year without celebrations? It is unprecedented.
But I don't
without
think
fireworks.
I don't think we will ever be the same. COVID has changed a lot of things.
Exactly.
And if you look at when you talk about talk about innovations in business, I do think that it's just a way to go.
Absolutely.
Because people have had to adjust, and that is something that we cannot
usually had
behind.
a culture of viewing then buying. Now it's simple. Just by phone, send and you deliver something.
To you.
Well, thank you, Mollen and Felix, and we believe the business community, there is something that you've taken home. Also importantly to note is we must ensure we perfect the standard operating procedures, because this could be short-lived joy in case we have cases of COVID-19 spring up, and of course we have our ICUs and high dependence units congested, or we reach that mark of 50% occupancy. We may have no option but to go back to disaster. So let's ensure we perfect this. Let's get vaccinated, because it's also one of the requirements now for you to enjoy this reopening. When we return, we want to take a look at what is in the papers this morning. But once again, let's take a look at our poll question.
How can the businesses thrive in the new normal of COVID-19? How can businesses thrive in the new normal of COVID-19? That is, be able to hit our socials, #UBCGMU, and for those of you using WhatsApp, be able to look at 0709602592.
Well, let's also look at some of the messages coming in. This is good morning. I'm Kesho Fred from Sironko District. To the spokesperson, I think the ministry has no value. Oh, okay. Well, we'll read more of these later. When we return, let's now take a glimpse at what is in the papers.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love myself.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Co-Uganda, Office of the President.
Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs.
My name is Mulage Sahod from Tororo District. I'm so happy that I'm a lucky winner of the 10 million Uganda shillings man after money promotion with Airtel. I can't believe it. It's just like I've been reborn. It's the best day of my life.
The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Keeping you informed as you kickstart your day is our mission every morning. So make it a date with us. From 6:30 we are here till the hour of 9, ensuring that you start your day a very informed person. That is why now we take you through the papers, some of the highlights in the dailies. And what is dominating is the reopening of schools. Now, Makerere, every fresher must have a laptop. That is Makerere University. You must have a laptop if you're a fresher and you're going to be joining campus. Then government survey report on schools out. That is illegal boarding school section is to be closed. Parents, watch out for that. Then we also have that is outstanding women of 2021. The vision has brought you. Who are these? I see the Right Honorable Prime Minister Robin Anabanja, and also the Kampala Women Member of Parliament, and of course those in the sports arena there. Transporters defy COVID vaccination card order. And also we see lawyers want witness arrested over Bujingo case. Still, the New Vision brings you more regarding that is the education and studying, where I have biology for senior 1 and senior 2 in today's paper.
Now in the Daily Monitor, government okays 1-year revised curriculum, and that is Kakwenzi badly tortured, lawyers say, and COVID in Uganda. They give you a peek up on the cases and how we're faring. Now, how Bank of Uganda shielded farms from COVID-19 and 200 teachers forged COVID-19 certificates. Now, we won't turn away passengers, drivers also come out to say. But still about the same. From the archives here, we see a photo. Crowds greet former President Milton Obote at Ishaka Bushenyi in southwestern Uganda in 1980. Now today in history, trains collide in Pakistan and Pelosi becomes first female speaker. That is in 2007.
Back to the New Vision this morning. We have the parenting column there. My daughter thinks we neglect her as parents. Seeking for advice there. Help our 14-year-old wears very short outfits. And we look at the COVID-19 tracker, where new confirmed cases in Uganda stand at 1,423. Positivity rate stands at 21.6%. New death, 4 persons have succumbed to COVID-19. And they give you so much there, what you should do to avoid the spread and also contracting COVID-19. We look at today in history. It was on this date, that's the 4th of January, the year 2000, when 4 billion was spent on, that is fighting Y2K. But we also look at Bin Laden on this very date, but the year 2004, tape was released.
Now in Sports Daily Monitor here, Vipers slither into unpredictable Arua and Indians reject statute, but NCS Ogwell talks fixing funding gaps there for sports, and Giants leaking lips. That is the story there for AFCON. And of course, Talons win inaugural Altona League season. Now, Women Beach Soccer Festive shows more hope, and FUFA Big League match fixing claims disorganization dent first round.
And in sports, we look at that is restating, that is the sports budget, where Sports Minister Hamson Mobua has requested the relevant authorities to stick with the Cabinet's decision of reinstating the sports budget. And they say university games could benefit from the restated sports budget, but also the South Africa National Cup qualifiers there. And of course, we are seeing that is soon to begin. We see the New Vision gives you more of that. And there's a very big picture there of Penina Kabenge. That is one who mans most of these sports for university games there. But these and more, remember, our expert in the field of sports will give you a hint of all those catchy stories.
Now, of course, the Daily Nation, how Raila made up with Njonjo, and of course, parents faced with fees, fines, and burdens Now, of course, still about elections, why we will fight coalition bill to the end. DP Ruto comes out to say, and fossil enthusiast inside Liki's search for Ali man. Of course, also, is Oka headed for collapse? They give you insights into the same stories. Now, be able to get copies of these papers to look at the stories in depth. But far from that, we want to take you onto the roads with Mollen, and later on, of course, she'll be taking us through weather. Mollen.
Want to look at some of the roads that are easy for us to get into the city, and also if you look at those you can avoid if you are on hurry. I'm telling you, we will start it off from Kampala-Jinja Highway, which seems to be quite a bit clear on just one side, and then the other side is kind of still in jam. But you look at the road coming into the city, Kampala, it is quite having a little bit of traffic, but those at least living away from Lugogo bypass can expect to have quite a clear road away from Kampala. But again, if you're joining the Jinja Highway, Kampala-Jinja Highway from Lugogo bypass, there is a little bit of jam just as you enter the road, but at least it does clear as you turn away to join Kampala-Jinja Highway. Now it's just, you know, a few kilometers, there is a little bit of traffic, but then it starts to move. So that means that traffic is kind of moving. So at least there is no need to avoid that road for now. It looks to be all in green, quite clear as you head into Kampala, but also the roads that are connecting to that. You look at Asher Road, which is also quite clear if you're joining in. That is a good one to take this morning as well. Now you look at the rest of the road actually being quite clear for this morning. That is the Kampala-Jinja Highway. But again, as you come close to the clock tower, just at that first roundabout, as you head into the lights of Jinja Road there's a little bit of traffic, but at least that's not to a bigger distance. So you look at that distance between the Ministry of Internal Affairs towards the clock tower, that is where we have a little bit of traffic, but also that kind of clears ahead of that roundabout. Then it starts to move a little bit. You see it kind of clear away from that clock tower, so you only get to see traffic again as you head onto the lights. But at least the fact that we have lights there, it kind of clears, but it's also not much. Now you look at also the roads that are leaving that place with lights. You look at the access road towards the western side of the road. That is quite sort of getting a little bit traffic, and you look at that one joining access road. So that is one that you might need to avoid. But also for the people that are cutting through from the upper side of that road towards you know, the lower side, that is still access road, are still expecting at least quite clear traffic there. But then when you continue with the Kampala-Jinja Highway joining into Kampala Road, that is also quite clear for this morning. Just the traffic that is there is after the lights, but after that you see traffic moving through. And then you look at some of the roads that are starting to build up with traffic. You look at Nasa Road also having a lot of traffic, so that is one you can avoid right now. You look at also the fact that if you're branching towards Nasa Road, so that upper side of Kampala Road is quite clear. So it might not be necessary if you're not joining the roads down. Still, you can keep up with the Kampala Road, which seems to be quite clear right now. But you also look at as you move towards Parliamentary Avenue, that road on Kampala Road is still quite clear. So that is also one to trust this morning. Now we do have just a few areas and only a few kilometers where we do have that traffic, but it looks like this morning Kampala Road is actually performing quite well. I mean, looking at, you know, the fact that usually that road is covered with traffic, but also looking at some of the roads that are joining into the city. You look at Nile Avenue here, quite clear. You look at Wampeo Avenue, also quite clear. The Yusufulule Road and Access Road there towards that roundabout is also quite clear. Now we're talking about that roundabout that has, you know, Centenary Park there, coming to Nile Avenue, Yusufulule. That place is quite clear, so it's actually good to take for this morning. And also you can taking some of these shortcuts if you're coming to the city center might help out with avoiding a little bit of traffic that is there on Kampala Road. But in general, actually, traffic is looking good this morning across Kampala. It's rare that you find some of these roads, most especially Kampala Road, being quite clear for a few areas. But then as you continue also through Nile Avenue, heading into the heart of the city, you start to see also such clear traffic over there, and that can leading into Speak Road. That is also on the upper side of Kampala Road, quite clear. So at least you see that towards City Square there, down on the Kampala Road, it's quite stuck with traffic. But you can avoid that if you're to use Nile Avenue through Speak Road. That is, if you're headed at least towards Bombo Road, you might need to take some of these roads that are quite clear and avoid the Kampala Road there. So that road also towards the City Square is quite clear. So if you're heading into, if you want to avoid actually Kampala Road, maybe you could actually take the upper roads through Nakasero Road as well. There is a little bit of traffic just as you leave that round with Speak Road. There is a little bit of traffic as you join Nakasero Road, but at least it's just for a small distance. It clears away, so it's better to take that than actually use the Kampala Road. Then moving ahead, you look at Kampala Road heading into Bombo Road, which is also quite clear for now. You look at also as you continue towards Wandegea, that road seems to be quite clear, and that is also one to take this morning. You also look at Nakasero Road all the way. If you're heading out of town, it is also quite clear actually. Now we also have some traffic that are building up across the Mulago roundabout. That is one to look out for. Now Mulago roundabout towards Yusufure, so it's actually the one for the people coming in from Kampala towards the roundabout. That's where we have a little bit of traffic. But those coming into using Mulago roundabout, Yusufure towards town, is actually kind of clear. But you also look at that Binaisa Road, also clear. So it's just the roundabout that has a little bit of traffic, but away from that, all that starts to clear. You also look at Makere Hill Road, which is also quite clear for this morning, leaving the roundabout. So the traffic is just at the roundabout, by the way. So after that, you start to look at very clear roads. Not so bad in terms of traffic for this morning. And you know, some of the road users, you know, using vehicles on the road, I think also it takes discipline to actually avoid traffic, because if you're all disciplined on the road, you can look at going through traffic quite well. But talking about you know, cars on the road, we do have, in terms of science innovations, some of the developers that are looking at electric vehicles, and this is one way we are curbing climate change. So yesterday we did get a story coming in from some of the top, actually one of the top brands when it comes to vehicles, and that is Tesla. They have launched at least 60% effectiveness of electric cars in Norway. Now Norway has become topmost in the countries that have embraced electric vehicles. And when we talk about electric vehicles, talking about the fact that this is what we are targeting in terms of reducing climate change. This is the first of its kind. Now we did have most of the brands, you know, come up, but we're looking at what really Elon Musk is doing with Tesla. Now Norway has been targeting to achieve having 60% of electric vehicles on the road by 2021. But guess what? They even surpassed that target, because right now we're talking about 65% that they have achieved. And their target is still continuing, because now they have even set out 2022 to reach 80%. So these are countries that are actually starting to phase away, moving from the use of petrol, from the use of diesel, to look at renewable energy. And the best way to go right now when you're talking about electric vehicles is just that. Now we do have countries that have most of the vehicles on the road. Now China is one of them. They are also looking at electric vehicles. Now, the only challenge with China is, even when they have electric vehicles on the road, they're still having all those vehicles that are consuming the fossil fuels. So at least Norway has set up a target, and this is going to be a good example to the rest of the world. These big economies can afford having these vehicles on the road, but also it's more effective. And also what was given out yesterday, away from the fact that Tesla has now worked with Norway government to make sure that they have these vehicles on the road, is that they have exempted vehicles that are using batteries from the tax. Now, that tax that other users using, petrol and all these fossil fuels have to pay, if you're in Norway and you're using, battery-powered vehicle, you're exempted from paying that tax. So I think it is one way to help people move towards the renewable energy. And this is what we're talking about. We are making sure that we have as less greenhouse gases into the atmosphere as possible. So seeing that, big brands are actually, big companies are coming up to make sure they're helping countries, get to sales of electric vehicles, this is the way to go. Because guess what? Also in other stories, we look at what we call the carbon sinks. Some of the world's carbon sinks, and the best example is forests. Now, we did have news coming in from Brazil yesterday that is talking about one of the forests that are, looking at dead species. Now, that is in Brazil, where at least this forest, and this one is bordering the Amazon. Now, for the study that has been carried out for the last 5 years, there has been depletion of species within trees in this forest. Now, meaning that even when these trees are dying off, you look at some of, that green cover, obviously now that keeps trapping some of this carbon dioxide, but how about the dead ones? What happens when some of these trees die off? Now, that means that the carbon dioxide that they have been trapping over the years now escapes into the atmosphere. And that is where scientists are worried, because once that starts to happen, because look at all this cover that was taken from this forest, that means the trees here have actually died off. And that is as much carbon dioxide rising into the atmosphere as it could be with that coverage. So that means that we are increasing these gases into the atmosphere, we are trapping more heat. So the target that we set up earlier, even with the Glasgow Pact that we did come up with in November last year, will just be to the ground if we are not looking at stopping some of these activities. Now, this is all due to climate change, but what is not due to climate change is our actions, how we behave towards conserving some of these forests. So you look at the fact that we now have to carry out more reforestation. And when we talk about focusing on Brazil, this harbors the world's biggest forest in terms of savanna cover, and that is the Amazon. So any attack on the Amazon is going to affect the rest of the world, because this is where most of these emissions are going. So it kind of scares scientists if you look at the fact that such a huge part of a forest is dying off, and that means it is bringing in more carbon dioxide, more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, henceforth increasing temperatures. And this is going to affect weather globally, not just in Brazil or even countries that are bordering Brazil. You look at the fact that in weather there's what we call the butterfly effect. So what happens there could as well affect the weather that is happening in Uganda. So that is how complicated the weather systems can be. But well, this morning we also want to look at the weather systems that are in the forecast. That is for the period of January to March in 2022, that is across East Africa. Now, this forecast did come up earlier from the East Africa Center for Prediction, that is ICPAC. They are giving us what we're likely to be experiencing during the period of January to March. Now, we look at, if you get a focus on Uganda, at least a few areas that are expected to have a little bit of cold weather. You look at Kabale Helens. Now, that area is usually associated with cold weather, but still for the month of January to March, you're still looking at that. Where you see the open white colors, also you look at Karamoja. This area is already experiencing quite moderate winds. If you look at that whole region, Moroto, towards also parts of most of Karamoja actually. So that in the forecast is likely to have a little bit of cold weather. But you also look at some of the areas that are likely to maintain within the normal kind of weather. You look at the rest of central Victoria Basin, western Uganda, northwestern, that area is likely to remain with a little bit, 40 to 50% above normal, but that is to be expected because we're headed for mostly a dry season. So at least temperatures won't be what we're experiencing right now. They will be just slightly above normal, but also nothing to really be worried about. Then how about in terms of the forecast, in terms of rainfall probability? You look at areas still within the southern part of the country. Now, most of the forecasts that are coming out right now, even from the models, are showing more of the rains concentrated to the southern sector. Now, usually this is what happens in January. You have generally a dry season, and then into February, so March you start to see more rains pick up. But again, you look at the southern sector, where you see the green colors, those are the areas that are expected to continue with a little bit of rains. That is within the period of January to March. Now, even right now as we speak, this is where we actually have the rains going on. So northern Uganda, eastern Uganda, parts of the Karamoja region, they have been experiencing those dry conditions, and still in the forecast that is looking ahead indicates that we will continue with a similar trend. So this is the area, if you are actually planning on having some agricultural activities, you might want to actually have a plan B for irrigation, water harvesting. Make sure that you have enough to feed your plantations. Otherwise, this is only starting and will continue. And also, I think this is a time that some of the agencies that do help out with relief and relief programs could actually start moving towards that, because this area is most likely to remain equally dry for the coming 3 months. Now you also focus on January alone, looking at what we have in terms of temperatures. Now January is most likely to be a little bit above average in terms of temperatures. You look at mostly the western part of the country, that is northwestern all the way to through midwestern, Masindi. You look at Fort Portal towards Bushenyi, Kasese, also in that forecast, most likely to have quite a bit of higher temperatures. But you look at the Karamoja region again, at least in faded yellow colors, faded orange colors, at least that will be quite a bit reduced in terms of temperatures. And also, like we looked about earlier, within the 3 months forecast. Now, is the region that is in white, that is across Lake Victoria, of course, with the waters keeping those temperatures a little bit down. But the rest of the country seems to be equally dealing with a little bit above average in terms of temperatures, and that has a lot to do with that, the fact that we are moving towards a dry season. Now, also focusing on January, you look at the forecast in terms of rainfall, what is likely to be happening across Uganda. Now, with January, you realize that, well, the general forecast for 3 months actually shows rains extending up to at least parts of central and much of the southern sector. But take a look at January forecast. We will only have rains across the Lake Victoria Basin. Now, this Lake Victoria Basin actually takes in parts through Tororo, you go through Jinja, Kamuli, that area, Mukono, Mubende. You look at the eastern parts of central, like at least Ruero, Wobulenzi. You come down to the western parts of Lake Victoria, Masaka, Sembabule, Rengo. Then you move in towards areas of Mbarara, Bushenyi, you move through Kisoro, Kabale. Those are the areas that we do expect to have a little bit of rains during January. But beyond that, take a look at the rest of the country in white. That means that these are the areas that are most likely to be dealing with dry conditions. So the rains are reducing. So even then, even for the areas that are actually in green colors where we do expect rains, these are most likely to be a little bit small. So either way, you also have to keep those practices of water harvesting. You have to keep making sure that, even when the rains are there, you're able to harvest it for in case the rains do reduce. And that is just January. It will only get more drier as we head into February. Maybe the rains start to pick up actually as we head towards March, because that is when our first major rainy season actually starts across the country. But other than that, we're likely to be dealing with mostly reduced wet weather activities across the country, and still, putting a focus on northern Uganda that is still within that white area. It means that there is just more of those dry conditions expected over there. So that is where we need relief, and that is where I think also most of these relief programs should come in, and government should come in to make sure those people have been helped, especially you look at the fact that agriculture will not be performing any better during the next 3 months. So there is need to have a little bit of relief. Well, but away from that, we take a look at what is happening across the country this morning in terms of our satellite coverage. Now, satellite is showing us a little bit of clouds that did start off earlier this morning across Lake Victoria. Now, that is a rainy system. It did bring a little bit of rains across the islands of Lake Victoria, and most of that has cleared off, but it is bringing a little bit of cloudy conditions towards the areas of Kampala. You look at Entebbe, some of the regions within the Lake Victoria Basin also dealing with mostly those cloudy conditions. But across the rest of the country, it's just a mix of clouds and sunshine. Much sunshine though across the Karamoja region, eastern Uganda. You look at areas of Soroti, you look at Lira right now dealing with mostly sunny weather. but we have a little bit of clouds developing across Arua, northwestern Uganda, at least starting off with less sunshine. You also look at southwestern Uganda towards Bara as well, Kabale, that area having just cloudy conditions for now. We do have, at least in the forecast, looking at the possibility of having rains across this area, but that will be later as the day progresses. Now also more focus on this system that is starting off from Lake Victoria. Now this is one that is most likely to be bringing rains across the Lake Victoria Basin. Now in the forecast does indicate possibilities of rains later in the day, so I'm thinking this is the system that is actually bringing all these rains right now, but that will be also over several places and a few areas within the Lake Victoria Basin. You look at also parts of the central part of Uganda towards Lake Choga. That area is starting off with clear skies, but most likely we'll have developments in the afternoon that are likely to bring us a little bit of rains. But for now, I can tell you it's quite a pleasant morning. The temperatures are not yet high, at least we're dealing with the lower 20s. It can only get more hot in the afternoon. That is when we start to look at upper 20s. And for northern Uganda, even afternoon we'll be having those 30s. And Karamoja right now has already hit the maximums of 33 during afternoons. And also same for areas like Soroti. Even yesterday we did have highs of lower 30s. So these are areas that are actually put across the country, and if you are moving towards there, you might need to prepare yourself and make sure you have your water bottles on the road, and also, you know, dress up light if you're headed towards areas like that. Well, I'll leave you at that. In terms of weather, we do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be here to take you through that. We have sports updates, and later Jagenda Semakula will be here to take you through Good Morning Uganda Extra. Well, you can always catch us online. We're streaming live on YouTube. That is UBC Television Uganda. My name is Mollen Kenyena. I want to wish you a good morning.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Pick of the day on UBC. Brought to you by
how to get points. Just use MTN to make calls, send SMS, load airtime, buy bundles, or pay for MTN subscription services.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
I'm growing up, I'm growing into every moment.
Thanks, Mom.
Nurture the moment with Minute Maid Delight, now available in apple flavor in the 400ml ready-to-drink pack.
Introducing the all-new Roofing's TMX 500C rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofing's, strength of a nation.
Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Introducing the all-new Roofing's TMX 500C rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofing's, strength of a nation.
I'm growing up, I'm growing into every moment.
Thanks.
Mom.
Nurture the moment with Minute Maid Delight, now available in apple flavor in the 400ml ready-to-drink pack.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
Patriotism is a feeling of love, devotion, and the willingness to sacrifice for one's country.
I say no to corruption because I put my country first. I choose peace over violence because I put my country first.
I love Uganda. I serve Uganda. I sacrifice for Uganda. I'm loyal to Uganda. I love myself.
Be patriotic. Uganda first. This message is brought to you by the National Secretariat for Patriotism Uganda, Office of the President.
Transact and win money after money with Airtel Money. 1.5 billion shillings in cash prizes up for grabs.
My name is Mulage Swahod from Tororo District. I'm so happy that I'm a lucky winner of the 10 million Uganda shillings Man After Money promotion with Airtel. I can't believe it. It's just like I've been reborn. It's the best day of my life.
The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Back to school, back to school, back to school today.
The global COVID-19 pandemic led the nation to 2 years of unprecedented learning, disruptions and closures. Now it is the time when the country is getting focused on upcoming school reopening. This is not a time for despair. This is a time to deepen community engagement for safer schools reopening. Rural Broadcasters Owners Association (DRUBA), in partnership with Ministry of Education, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, World of Bingwa, Teacher Talk Magazine and Stanbic Bank will engage parents, learners, teachers, school proprietors through an inclusive National Safe Back to School Symposium. The National SB2S Symposium is a countrywide 3 days of deliberation hosted at UBC and aired simultaneously via radio stations and televisions from Monday 3rd January to Wednesday 5th January 2022 from 11 a.m. to midday. The speakers will include the Minister from Education, Youth and Child Affairs, leaders of teachers' unions, school proprietors, parents and private sector. The speakers will be supported by media personalities to convey messages in different languages as well as igniting conversations customized to geographical and social reach. Do not miss. Let's discuss safe school reopening.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.